What a legend. Big George Foreman has unfortunately passed away at 76 years old, but throughout his career was one of the scariest and most ruthless punchers heavyweight boxing has ever seen. So this is the legendary career of George Foreman.
So George Foreman debuted in 1969 and early on into his career was one of the most ferocious punchers, one of the most dangerous heavyweights in the world, with him being 40-0 with 37 knockouts going into his big fight, the Rumble in the Jungle with Muhammad Ali. But before that, George Foreman was an underdog when he met Joe Frazier, and the iconic moment of George Foreman dropping Frazier in that first round and stopping him in the second. Down goes Frazier. Foreman was just running through even the toughest of heavyweights in the world. Joe Frazier coming off the war against Muhammad Ali in the first fight. Then he stopped the likes of Ken Norton, and George Foreman was just on top of the world. And now everything is kind of in retrospect. George Foreman was on this run. He had massive fights with the likes of Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle, the 1974 Fight of the Year, where Ali was a huge underdog. People were fearing for Ali's life. That's how scary George Foreman really was. There were stories of even Muhammad Ali's corner being like not sure about the fight, not sure going into the fight against George Foreman, because 40-0 with 37 knockouts and beating the likes of Joe Frazier with ease, beating Ken Norton with ease. How is Muhammad Ali supposed to beat this guy? But Ali does the unthinkable, stopping George Foreman, and that affected George Foreman for many years to come.
Yeah, there's been many scary and powerful boxers we've seen in boxing heavyweight history, including the likes of Mike Tyson. But some of the founding boxers at that heavyweight division that were really the originators of being scary, powerful guys was the likes of Sonny Liston and as well George Foreman. And like you said, going into that Ali fight, many did not expect him to lose, beating Joe Frazier, being on top of the world, but Ali did not have any fear and famously was going toe-to-toe in the lead-up against George Foreman, not being afraid, and was extremely confident. And in that fight, Ali switched the tables. Ali was the one dropping George Foreman and famously finished him in the 8th round. And in that fight, we also saw Ali bring out his famous rope-a-dope, being evasive, being able to wear down Foreman. Foreman was not able to land his massive blows on Ali. And this was an electric fight, a massive fight for boxing in which the underdog Muhammad Ali got the win. And with this being the first loss for George Foreman's career and being stopped at that, it was definitely a big loss for Foreman. I'm pretty sure he's even said that it really messed with him for a while. And coming up to maybe a potential rematch between the two, Foreman was doing everything. He had a famous 5 fights in one night. Granted, those guys weren't too good, but it was kind of just a show with Ali in commentary for him to get that rematch and to show that he's ready to win the rematch as well. And going on from that Ali fight, he had another fight with Joe Frazier in which he did win, with Frazier being knocked down twice in that 5th round. And then he would go on to have a few more fights, take his second loss to Jimmy Young, and after that, that's really where he took his hiatus from boxing and then would go on to focus on his private life for a while.
Yeah, his initial retirement came pretty early on into his career and pretty unexpected. He had this religious awakening, a near-death experience, and that kind of took him away from the sport for over 10 years. And he returned at 38 years old, pretty much passing by his prime years. Typically, the prime of an athlete is around like 27 to 31, 32 years old. And George Foreman during those years was not even boxing. He came back in his late 30s, and many didn't expect him to do too much back in the sport. Obviously, being much older guy, even though his style does age very well. It's not like he's some light on his feet, fast moving, fast twitch boxer. He's more of a slower, methodical, heavy-handed marauder who's walking forward, putting on devastating punches. So that style ended up aging pretty well. He came back, had a couple of big fights, a lot of knockouts against lesser opposition before having a big fight against Evander Holyfield, challenging for a title at about 42 years old against Holyfield pretty much in his prime, 25-0. He ended up losing that fight via unanimous decision. They went to war, but that didn't deter Foreman. He didn't take that and just end the sport like many would. Many at 42 years old, coming off a loss of the title. You got your shot already. You came up short. What do you have left to prove? One of the greatest of all time. But George Foreman did not take no for an answer, and he ended up coming back again.
Yeah, Foreman would have a few fights in between the Evander Holyfield fight, getting 3 more wins in the column, then fight for the WBO World Heavy Vacant, in which he would be going up against Tommy Morrison. However, this again would not go his favor, in which he would lose the decision against Tommy Morrison and once again was a win away from capturing his second title. But like you said, again, he did not give up. His next fight was Michael Moore for the IBF World Heavy, at which he was 45 going into this fight against the undefeated Michael Moore. Foreman was the massive underdog going into this fight, the much older guy, the guy that was just coming off of a loss, and I don't think many expected Foreman to do what he did, but he did the unthinkable. Going into this fight, Foreman predicted that he would break Michael Moore down, and Foreman ended up finding the beautiful shot in the 10th round, knocking him out. And he had just become the oldest heavyweight boxer at 45 years of age, which is absolutely insane. After his 10-year hiatus previously, getting more wins in at his older age, taking some losses to Evander Holyfield, Tommy Morrison, and now winning against Michael Moore has solidified his legacy, and he's a massive legend in the sport.
Yeah, I feel like this really cemented Foreman as one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. He already was with his fights against the likes of Joe Frazier, stopping all the opponents he had and all the wars he's been in up until this point. But to become a heavyweight champion at 45 years old, 20 years apart from when he first won the title, is just unheard of, insane, never been done ever since, and that was over 30 years ago now. So an incredible feat, an incredible career for George Foreman, and this set him apart even from other heavyweights of his era. To have 45 years old, still be doing his thing in the ring, still be knocking out young, hungry, undefeated champions is insane. And George also had other business ventures like his famous grill, and he was doing very well for himself. He came back after this fight, defended his belt a little bit, had a couple more wins before losing to Shannon Briggs to end off his career via majority decision. But what a legend, what a powerhouse, a 90% knockout ratio for George Foreman. Whenever he would go in the ring, they would be fireworks, guaranteed. Only ever been stopped once at the hands of Muhammad Ali, also the greatest. And if Muhammad Ali didn't have these dance partners like the Sonny Listons, like the Joe Fraziers, like the George Foremans, he wouldn't be as great as he is. These guys were the big three heavyweight kings of the era, and it's sad to see that they're all now passed on, but the legacy that they left is immense in the boxing world. They conquered, they set the bar for the next generation and generations to come, and these guys will always be remembered. And Big George really did it all, knocked out a lot of the best of his generation, fought all the best of his generation, and even generations after. From here we would go on to see even more great heavyweights, and the likes of Mike Tyson, another ferocious puncher, Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, all the guys that came after this generation. And I'm sad to say that I wasn't able to be there to witness it. I was born after George Foreman retired, after his career. I wasn't there to see George Foreman in his prime, but luckily we have the tapes to see what these guys did, how their careers planned out, how great they were, and the legacy that they left. So let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you guys think was the greatest moment of Big George's career? But if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and check out the video on screen on what happened to Deontay Wilder.